I enlisted myself in this invisible army uniform that people don't see.
Start today. If you feel inspired, if you feel like there's something else to do, start today. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Resilient Riches. Today, I brought Barak Schwartz, who is somebody actually so unique that turns his passion and actually made money on his passion. So first, he was a basketball star, and then he got injured, and things didn't go his way properly, but he was really tough. And he went, and now he teaches kids how to actually develop basketball skills and build self-confidence through sports. So instead of going the traditional route, he went a different route. Then he went and he went through a tragic event that he lost a very close friend of his at the Nova Festival. And he went, you know what? I need to advocate for the Jewish people. I need to advocate for my friend who lost. I need to just bring real stories and fight this media bias against the Jewish people. So he built a YouTube page with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, just having conversations with people about real people. And what I like about Barak, it's something a little bit unique, is that he constantly takes what people will take and push them down. He uses that as fuel and motivation to continuously build himself up and build up his friends and build up his people. So today you're going to learn some very interesting dynamics on how to actually build something with your passion. So thanks, everybody. We're excited for you to listen, and we're excited for this conversation. So Barak, really excited for you for coming on. I know you're in Spain right now, so you're just like trying to get some sun over there, but we really appreciate you coming on. First, we want to send our deepest condolences to your friend who you lost at the Nova Festival, and I know you are honoring your friend's legacy in such an amazing way, and seeing your meteoric rise in the YouTube world and across all your Instagram channels and how much impact you're doing now. I know you're going to Africa just to speak with Arab delegates, which is something so unique. So Barak, thanks so much for coming on. We're really excited for this conversation.
Yair, thank you for having me. And I also I know your dad's right next to you, so hello to the both of you. That was the solid intro. You hit everything, and I'm excited to explore. This is a new space for me where it really hones in on sort of the passion building to be able to actually make this into a lifestyle. So I'm excited to talk.
So what was the initial thought that you had that, okay, this is the avenue I'm going to take? First, let's talk about the sports side, and then let's talk about the other side. So what was the initial idea?
Sure. Well, I was born in the States. When I was 6 years old, I relocated to Israel with my family. That's the first time I ever picked up a basketball when I was a 6-year-old in Jerusalem. I fell in love with the game deeply, came back to the States at 8 years old. We have this expression in basketball, ball is life, and that was my life. That's all I did. I would go after school, I would shoot. I'd go after dinner, I'd turn the floodlights on, I would shovel snow. My older brother, who's 4 years older than me, taught me pretty much everything up to a certain extent until I was starting to play with teams. So my dream was to be an NBA basketball player. I think I learned pretty early on that I was a semi-athletic Ashkenazi Jew from Boston. I was not making it to the NBA. And that didn't stop me from working really, really hard. My work ethic is the one that I have today has been transformed. And I think it really deviates from being a basketball player and competing. And throughout my career, I played in 2 high schools and 2 colleges, but I was injured throughout most of my career, unfortunately. And if you want later on, we can potentially get into some of those injuries and what that felt like mentally and physically. And so basketball playing was a very difficult task for me to accomplish at a high level. I was just playing catch up most of my career. And through these injuries and through this constant battle of just getting punched in the face over and over through different injuries and being sidelined, I really had moments to think about, what does this mean in terms of me and my life, and how can I react to this to be able to make it something positive? And that turned me into becoming a trainer to help train other athletes don't have to go through what I went through. So that was the sports life for me in a nutshell.
And then, okay, so you get into that space, and my family's very big in the fitness world. I mean, my dad has his rockin' keg that he walks around with. He likes to lift heavy all the time. He could be in a commercial for that piece, but you get into the training world, and then you go, all right, well, I lost my friend. I need to fight this counter narrative. Did anybody inspire you? Like, what was that like? And then let's get right deep into it, how you actually did it and the actual techniques that you did to build so quickly.
Sure. Well, I went back, like I told you, I went back to the States when I was 8, and then I spent the far majority of my life in America. I had gone back and forth for playing basketball and to work with Birthright Israel. So I had always had a calling to maybe go back to Israel. And so when I did go back to Israel in 2019, and I was working for Maccabi Tel Aviv at the time, most premier club in Israel, EuroLeague team. And when I got my passport, like when I officially made Aliyah, the country did not call me to serve in the army. And so I always had a little bit of survivor's guilt whenever there were wars or there was any fighting happening, and my friends would be sent into territories and they'd have to put a uniform on and I didn't have to do anything. So the calling for me was after the 7th of October, flying back to the States on the 10th. I didn't really feel too safe in Israel. I also don't have any family in Israel. Learning about my friend Daniel, who I had spoken to like the week prior. We were going to get coffee, and just feeling like there was no way for me to contribute. Like I was in Boston, my friends were in Gaza. So I took my basketball fitness, I guess, journey, you could say. I parked it for a moment and decided to start talking about Israel through the lens of somebody who's a basketball guy, an American who likes hip hop music and moved to Israel and has a couple things to say. And that was the motive. That still is the motive. That's why I started. I didn't get into it for any other reason, but just to speak and just to share. And I say that I enlisted myself in this invisible army uniform that people don't see.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. Did you think that you could turn it into a career or into a monetization of your platform?
When I started, no, but I cared too much about talking about something that means so much to me. And I think that has a lot to do with why I'm succeeding now, because I'm coming from the right places.
So what's that? Let's talk about somebody who wants to actually, let's say, turn it into a business. Let's just to keep it business for a second. If somebody who actually wants to turn it into a business, how would you recommend that they start with? Like how should they go around the vertical?
Sure. Well, I work on social media. And so if we're going to talk social media terms, I'll make it pretty simple. So I have a YouTube channel, which I call Home Base. I also have an Instagram, which is very successful. I have a TikTok, which is also growing. I have a Patreon, which is a subset of people from my YouTube channel. I think about these funnels leading to YouTube. YouTube is the platform where you can have a monetization strategy because you directly get paid for every view. The more views you get, the more clicks you get, the more views, the more ad revenue. And so if you are able to build up not just clicks and views, but you also build up volume, aka how much output you have on your channel. And we've seen over the past couple of years, YouTube has really transformed from what at one point was a heavy, not just long form content platform, but long form content platform that you could get away with maybe putting out 1 to 2 videos a week. But because of the nature of what I talk about, it is easier for content to earn a smaller RPM, or CPM, how much advertisers are willing to pay per 1,000 views on a video of mine, because I'm talking about the Middle East and I'm not talking about the brand new iPhone. So automatically a video that does 50K for the new tech review versus a 50K video for me will get paid more. So I personally have to put out more videos. I also have a big YouTube mentor whose name I'm not going to include, who has inspired me. We've known each other before the 7th of October. He contacted me because he saw a lot of potential in me, and he actually onboarded me to this YouTube thing. It wasn't just Barak. Like the calling to do it for Israel was a combination of me and what I just explained to you, and him saying this might be a moment for you to talk about something you really want to do besides basketball. But he also taught me the X's and O's, and I've been doing it for a year and a half, and have also been very fortunate to get help along the way now since I've grown. I mean, that's what happens when you grow, you scale.
Yeah, I mean, you've grown so quickly. So how are you managing the scale?
I have a really interesting agency that helps with Middle Eastern geopolitics, Israel content, that specializes in maximizing the output for videos. And so their special sauce is helping maximize a thumbnail, helping maximize a title, but I have to show up and make sure to perform and provide the best content I can every single day for them.
Yeah, so there's the pieces behind a YouTube video, which is like the thumbnail and the hashtags and the positioning and the headlines and things like that. But then if the content that will get people in the door, but if people don't stay, then you don't actually get like long-term viewage, is my feeling. So people need to actually take out nuggets. So now that you're building, so you built so quickly in about a year and a half, and the big mistakes that people will have is that they'll build really, really quick. They'll try to scale and they'll try to throw money at things. What is your next stage while you're going through this, now that you actually built this channel and built this following?
Well, my next stage is beyond just YouTube, but if we're going to focus just on YouTube.
We don't have to focus on YouTube. I want to focus on you.
Okay. Well, my next stage, I'm in the process of fundraising now privately for me to be able to scale what I'm doing, because what I've been able to be able to reach more people, right? Like I'm one person, okay? And at the same time, I still have to delegate a lot of my work, because part of my passion is finishing a speaking tour, which I just did in America and Canada, where I spoke to different Jewish and non-Jewish communities, really merging these two worlds of Israel and basketball. So I have an incredible, you could call her an assistant, a manager. She operates out of Boston, and she has taken away the time that I was used to working on logistics, emails, outreach, cold, this and that. She has now, allowed me to focus more on YouTube. My goal then is to reach more people, get more eyeballs.
So you were scaling, and then you hired somebody on the outside.
Yeah, but I want to get into that for a moment, because I think that's the piece of advice that a lot of people hear a lot but don't actually take steps on. So this is what I mean by this. When I started YouTube, I started as the guy wearing 19 hats. I was the ideation guy, the creation guy, the video guy, the editor, the marketer, the producer, all of it. You can imagine how long that takes to do each thing, thumbnail and title included, reference it on separate channels, etc. And then how do you actually maintain that without burning out or growing a monetization, a channel that can monetize good money? The piece of advice that everyone asks is, Barak, I don't have time to do the thumbnail and the title and all the other things that you just listed. What do I do? And the first question is, can you hire? Do they have a budget? A lot of people say no. Now, I'm somebody who, for the far majority of my life, when I've started something new, I've done stuff for free. There are people who are talented, who are willing to do stuff for free. You just have to do a little bit of work and try to find these people and create an incentive for them to want to help. If you're good and you're talented and your stuff has potential, you can find people. It just takes a little bit of digging. And so the practical step number one that I would do is, what is it about your workflow that you can delegate to other people? You should not be the person doing everything, especially since YouTube is a subjective game. If you think a thumbnail and a title is really good because it sounds good in your head, it does not mean that YouTube thinks it's really good. So what you think is actually not always the right answer. And I found that when I was A/B testing my own thumbnails. You should look for someone either for free or at a low cost at a place like Fiverr or Upwork, or some college student who you can give them credit for their internship, and find a way to create a workflow where you can then delegate some of this work. What happens when you delegate is that they focus on the thing that they're the best at, you focus on the thing that you're the best at, and if it works, you start to have a sample size of video to be able to see if it's working.
So how did you vet? Because there's so many people on Fiverr, and there's so many people that want to do something like this. How did you actually vet that?
I'm telling you, that was not what I went through, because I grew very rapidly. The agency I work with found me. So it's a different process. Like, my stuff is good. They found me, they offered to help, and now they work with me. I did try one person on Fiverr after speaking to them for a couple of days. I gave it a shot, and that just didn't work out for me, because it didn't produce, after the work we didn't produce what I wanted. And I came across, I told you, it's an agency that specifies in this niche, and they work with other content creators, some of whom that maybe you've seen before. And they have focused on a specific area on YouTube that no one else owns. So they're really kind of the only people that work on pro-Israel geopolitics, and they're very good at it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a big need for that. So what I want to just break down for a second is forget about what you're talking about, but you found a niche that's so specific and so integral that's like, okay, well, we are focusing on something so unique. Like, we speak on finances, but we don't speak on, like, what's the difference between a Roth IRA. We speak about how financials and your business can help grow, and how can you be tough and resilient through it. So that's really our specific. Obviously, we can get more and more narrow, but that's really where I think we found a lot of success in our podcast and across our channels, especially on LinkedIn, I would say, is our biggest channel. So once you start building, why are you recommending people to hire if you didn't hire? And then when did you get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I need to actually start hiring, even if you're not making money?
Well, there's two things. One, it's not that first of all, I'm looking to hire right now, right? Like, that's why I said I'm trying to fundraise. So I am looking to hire to build an actual media team, because I am at that scale. I mean, I'm reaching like 8 to 10 million people a month. So my channel is at the point where, like, I need to be able to delegate my work. Number two, if I didn't have the success that I was having on YouTube and they didn't find me, I was in the process of looking to hire. I just got lucky. You're talking to somebody who got lucky. Most people don't always have the path that I do. And if it wasn't for that, I'd be the same person trying to find people on Facebook groups, trying to find people on Fiverr and Upwork, trying to ask local friends. I went on LinkedIn and I looked for like YouTube SEO specialists in Israel and took them out for coffee. Like that's what you need to do. You need to do these things behind the scenes to be able to like find and build your team. There is no business in the world. You can look at any large business. You can listen to any CEO, any leader that have scaled, that have gotten to where they are without hiring. Like the CEO of LinkedIn was on the Diary of a CEO a couple weeks ago, and he said, like, the number one step that most business people need to make is hire. You have to spend money to make money. And I just truly believe in that, especially if you want to scale something large.
I agree with you. I mean, you need to reinvest in your business. And it's also, but I think that's a very specific point, is that there's two sides. One is you can hire very, very quickly to outsource and to try to take away the work, but you really need to find it on timing. So hiring somebody when you're building and you haven't learned it for yourself is a big mistake, is my opinion. Yes, there are people that can do it better, but if you hire like, all right, I'm starting a business and I'm hiring a salesperson, it's like, well, you never actually sold anything. So how are you going to do it? So I know this one company, it's a life insurance brokerage company. And I spoke to them, and they had all the tech and the software and the VC funds and this and that and all this money behind them. And I said, they asked me to be the CEO, and I was like, "Have you guys ever sold a life insurance policy before?" They're like, "No, we've never sold a life insurance policy before." So I was like, "How do you even know what the market wants when you don't even know how a life insurance policy gets sold?" Like,
sure.
So it wasn't. And now they've actually like hired people 8 years later, and now they're finally starting to make some money. But like, and I mean, they had a lot of money behind them, so they were able to kind of deal with it. But then you get to the publicly traded companies like a Vimeo or a Roku or things like that, where they get all these funds, and they lose their core philosophy, which is how do you build amazing programs and products for creators, and then they lose everything else like that. But it sounds like you found the sweet spot. You learned everything yourself. And then from there, then you start to hire once you felt like you can outsource and continue pushing on the thing you do best.
Well, of course, but I also just think that like you need to understand the trade, because if you want to hire someone, you have to be able to help them understand what you want. Because like if I never made thumbnails and I never made titles and I never uploaded a video, I never looked at the channel management, and I never actually went through the process of writing a script, like, then when you have to delegate this work and there's expectations on the table for how that video is supposed to come out, you're not necessarily able to fulfill those leads to them. So I think that you should be in the dirt for a little while. Like you should try and, Mr. Beast, who's the greatest YouTuber of all time, always says to new YouTubers, like, go make 100 videos and then talk to me. And like every single video that you make, just find one thing and make the next one a little bit better. Stop trying to make perfect videos. And that's when I look back at the beginning of my YouTube, which is not that long ago, but those videos sometimes make me cringe. Like the fact that I used to write scripts makes me cringe. Now I don't make scripts because I found a better strategy. I make reaction videos because they take less time and I can put more out and they're performing better. And it's also what the algorithm is wanting to be fed. So you also have to be paying attention natively to the platform itself. But I do think like, yeah, if you want to hire and you've already gone through the reps yourself, it's, you don't have to always be an athlete to be a good coach. Like Bill Belichick is a really good example of that. He didn't play football. He was a great coach. But I would say the far majority of some of the best coaches of all time across all sports had been players at one point during their lives.
I agree with that. So what's one of those moments in your life that you felt like this is actually what I'm here to do? Like this is my calling? Because obviously you've been doing different things for different times. When did you find that actual moment?
When I was sitting in my house in Boston in October 2023 and could not stop thinking about what happened, being away from Israel and feeling like I can't contribute to the country, and sitting on that for so long. And it was paralleled with this YouTube mentor I told you about, who he and I had a very honest call together. And he said something that clicked in my head about this is a moment that you might want to really listen to. And this is an opportunity for you to really just like transition and see what happens. And I didn't even hesitate. I hung up the phone and I started.
It's amazing. So you've had this resilient life and injuries and losing your friend and dealing with challenges, but you keep taking these things and becoming very motivated through it. What was the defining moment in your life that allowed you to be so motivated to constantly be pushing forward?
There's many. I mean, usually when I'm thinking about something that I'm really enjoying doing in my life and the process it takes to grind through to find out and taste a little bit of success, I typically, my mind typically goes back to when I was 16 and I broke my back when I was a junior going into senior year of high school. I had a lot of Division II and Division III schools in Northeast America recruiting me. And that was the first of, I'm 30 now. I just turned 30 a couple weeks ago. That was the first of like 13, 14 years because I still have a couple of injuries lingering. Constant injuries. There's not a lot of people that really understand, like not even maybe my parents, but not a lot of people understand like the hole inside of the hole inside of the hole that my head was in during these injuries, and the actual process of going through what I went through from a physical standpoint was it's insane to actually think about the amount of rehab that I went through and that I didn't tie my shoes and just hang them up. My mind usually goes there. Like there's literally nothing that can stop me from doing that I want to do because I've proved that to myself through that. Did I become an NBA player? No. But a lot of people in my situation would have easily just hung up the shoes and decided to maybe just go corporate or do something else with their lives. And I found a way to actually make light of this adversity that I was dealing with basketball and turn it into something, and it became a career for me when I was my first 4 years in Israel.
That's amazing. My brother has a very similar story. I'm going to let my dad jump in because he's just going he's hitting me. He's like, tell him about your brother, MB, that also broke his back wrestling, and now he continues wrestling, and then he became a trainer, and he coaches people at a pretty low level.
Oh, thank you, Yair. It's nice to meet you again, Barak. Of course, sorry for the loss of your friend at Nova, but I find it very interesting because I think Yair, who served in the IDF, and I think generally of all all of us and outside of Israel, we've had that same kind of feeling like, what can we do to help? I know where I live in Englewood, they sent duffel bags of equipment. Just everybody had that same feeling, but you were able to now turn it into a career and a different type of program. I think Yair, who served in the IDF, he also, that was actually when we started the podcast before that, but we turned it into more of an Israel base, exactly for that same reason. And just to talk about what Yair said, my oldest son also, and all my boys were wrestlers, big wrestlers in high school. My oldest son has a gym in Tenafly, and he broke his back in high school, and he was rolling around in an office chair we bought for him. And he just recently had like this neck surgery, but he still wants to get back to wrestling. And he's older than you. He's like 38. But just to go a little bit more, I'm not as familiar with your content. What do you attribute the success of your content to? I mean, you mentioned a little bit combining athletic with the Israel content, but if you could say like a couple of points, like why do you think that you have 10 million views a month, which is pretty amazing?
It's a really good question because in social media, views and engagement and follows those aren't the KPIs that measure success, especially when it comes to advocacy, because those KPIs don't determine either minds you're changing or people you're influencing, right? Only like when you hear from it directly or you have somebody reach out to you. I just finished my first speaking tour. I was in the States for a month and a half. I spoke at 3 Jewish communities and 2 non-Jewish communities. And one of the events that I did was the literal like live example of what I call the intersection of Israel advocacy and basketball. I was in Hamilton, Canada, which is about 45 minutes out of Toronto. And
so I grew up in Toronto.
Okay, so you know Hamilton. And I went to the Hebrew Academy there, where I brought 40 Orthodox Jewish day school students and merged them with a basketball team called Liberty for Youth, which is a team of 8 to 10 at that time, 8 to 10 teens who had all been in trouble with the law before. They've all been arrested at some point in their lives, and they joined this basketball program, this sports program, to help teach them discipline and community and teamwork and get them away from that environment. This is the first time that these 2 groups of people had ever met, all different ages, 50 kids in a gym, for Jews and non-Jews. And because I come from the basketball world, my vision the past year and a half sitting in Israel has always been, I want to continue YouTube, but I want to make this a live experience for people, because I think that the in-person interactions is where you can really influence people, not just the views that you're referring to, which I'll get to in a second. And I literally coached them. I put them through basketball training and strength and conditioning for 45 minutes. I made them be on teams together. The Liberty for Youth players were the captains of all the teams. And then after those 45 minutes, we sat in a big circle on the court, all 50. And I brought with us, which I have here in this room, it's somewhere over there, a piece of rocket shrapnel that I picked up with my own two hands at the only basketball court in Metula, which is the northernmost city in Israel, which had the most damage out of any place in Israel from all of the rockets from Hezbollah. And I went to this basketball court 5-6 months ago where it's all still in despair. And I grabbed a piece of rocket shrapnel to show people as I travel across the world, this is what kids just like you back in Metula are under. This is supposed to free Palestine. And I brought it and they all passed it around in a circle. And by the end of my time with them, that 90 minutes, the coach of the team came up to me and said, due to your visit today, my team and my perspective on Israel has completely shifted. And that to me is a win. That's my win. Is it on a large scale? Is it 10 million people that I'm getting to on YouTube? No, it's not. But the thing about that is that coach is the mentor for those kids. And that coach knows other people. And those kids hang out with other people. And it's a domino effect. And the reason I want to now fundraise and be able to reach more people to do what I just did and explain to you, rinse and repeat, is to multiply and compound that effect because it does work. So that's the in-person stuff. The online stuff, I'm going to tell you a very recent story. I don't know if you and Yair are familiar with a YouTuber. Her name is Miss Rachel. She's the largest childhood education YouTuber. She's the largest child. Okay, you know Miss Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay? All the problems there.
Great. I made a video last week on Instagram, a 12-minute video, which is it's not that common on Instagram to put out a 12-minute reel about her. I've been watching her stuff. I watched her interview with Mehdi Hassan, and I really leaned into her. Like I really wanted to expose a lot of the misunderstanding on her part, which I'll say I don't fully blame on her. And she saw the video and she followed me. She messaged me. And I'm now texting her personally. And she has agreed to a conversation with me that will not be recorded and potentially has agreed to a conversation, depending on how that one goes, to be recorded. And so this is an example of, sure, those 10 million people I'm getting to on YouTube and around the 2 to 3 million I'm getting a month on Instagram. Barak doesn't wake up to a queue every morning and says, X amount of people have gone from pro-Israel, pro-Palestine to pro-Israel. I don't have that. And in fact, I don't think that will ever exist. But the thing that I think I'm doing, which I think just needs to be on steroids, is because I didn't serve in the army, because I don't have any skin in this game, I'm not a geopolitician, I'm not Mossad, I'm not an IDF, reservist. I'm just a basketball guy from the States who, all my closest friends are all non-Jews. I've spent time with Arabs before. I'm going to Morocco in like 4 days to go spend time with Arabs. Like I can do this. I'm built for this. And I think that as long as people see me for that, and it leads them to wanting to listen a little bit more. That's what happened with Miss Rachel. It's happened to a few other people. And I just see the proof in the, I just see it. Like I see it happening. And I think that it can be done on a large scale. And I'm trying to create a model for other people to maybe replicate, because it doesn't clearly take someone who's some Douglas Murray, or it doesn't take somebody who's a Ben Shapiro. And they're incredible. Like they're incredible minds who know a lot more than I do when it comes to facts. But I'm trying to come at it from a storytelling standpoint.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yair's giving me my my quit sign. I've got to get off. But, just one thing I wanted to mention: when we first started doing the podcast and interviewing a lot of the Israelis, Hillel Fuld, and there was a few others that you'll complain that I don't remember their names, but a lot of them were saying that they're great in Israel. Innovation is amazing, right? We all know all the great inventions that are coming out there, but they're really behind on social media. Like the rest of the world has really gone much more forward, in Israel, for some reason, they never thought it. But I think there's really a strong place for someone like yourself that can promote that, and it's the proof is in the pudding, like you're saying. Anyways, great to meet you, and I'll give it back to Yair.
Yep.
Thank you, David K., for your brevity. But no, Barak, we really appreciate what you're doing, and we watched Miss Rachel, and we've been talking about Miss Rachel, and we stopped watching Miss Rachel because of that, because of her like I wouldn't say anti-Israel, just her non-understanding of both sides of the conflict. People can be, I say to people all the time, if you say they're like anti and we don't want to even engage with them, then how are you ever going to be able to sway them? How are you ever going to be able to have a conversation with them? So instead of just pushing everybody away and creating these like invisible barriers, you really have to get connected. And I think that's a big part of why you're successful, because you're just getting into it. So it's like not being scared to talk about money, not being scared to talk about business, not being scared to talk about Israel, not being scared to actually have the conversations when it is scary. And that's really the truth of it. And I think that's a really big lesson for everybody. So, Barak, we really appreciate what you're doing. We really appreciate having you on. How can people get in touch with you? How can people see your content? How can people support you and also help you grow and help your mission grow?
I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. I am Other Barak on every single social media platform. So otherbarak.com is my site where it has all of my information. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of it is X is just at Other Barak. And the best way to support me would be to follow, interact with my content. And if something really hits home for you, share, because as we saw last week, you really never know who could see it.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Barak, thanks so much for coming on, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. And one thing to take away from this podcast, number one, start today. If you feel inspired, if you feel like there's something else to do, start today, because this is the future. AI is there and all this other stuff is there, but what Barak is doing is the future, and we need to take advantage of it. And we hope that these episodes are inspiring you. Please make sure to like, comment, and share. And don't forget to leave a review on Spotify. We're at 1.4 thousand. My dad dared me that we couldn't get to 1.5 thousand. So I'm really working on that piece too. Barak, thanks so much for coming on. We'll see everybody on the next one.
Thanks, brother.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member at FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth Inc. is a separately owned other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth Inc. The opinions expressed herein are for general information only, as not necessarily the opinions of Osaic Wealth Inc. or its representatives. It is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendation for any individual. Please consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation.